Good evening, guys. Welcome to the show. Welcome to I Want to Believe Chat Show. And we've changed the date and time to a Friday. Hopefully, it's more feasible for you guys. I think this is going to be our new scheduled time and date moving forward. So I hope you guys enjoy the content over the next few months. We have tons of people lined up, all different realms of the paranormal field. We've got experts, we've got witnesses, we've got people in different elements of the field all together. So, Kathy, how are you?
I'm good, Peter. How are you doing?
Good.
I'm so enthusiastic tonight.
I know. How are you doing?
It's my coffee. I've had a lot.
I know. So how's your week been? Good?
My week has been good, actually. Yeah, it's been, pretty quiet. Just kind of, doing stuff, doing spring cleaning. How exciting! But yeah, it's been good. It's been good. How about you?
Been pretty much the same. Busy at work and looking forward to a week off. Got May long weekend over in BC. I don't know whether it's the same in Alberta, but I've got next week off as well. So it's and the weather's just turned as well. It was about 26 degrees in Kamloops today, so it's really nice as well. So super pumped for that. So this week's guest is Lynda. Lynda is a seasoned paranormal investigator from the East Coast. I will let her kind of give a bit more detail on her background in a minute. And Lynda, we'd like to bring her on the show. Welcome, Lynda.
Hello, Lynda.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thrilled to have you joining us tonight.
So tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Lynda Quirino. I'm the founder and director of the Georgina Paranormal Society in Georgina, Ontario, which is about an hour and a bit north of Toronto, the bustling metropolis of Toronto. Yeah, I mean, basically, in the paranormal, this is what I do. I do the Georgina Paranormal Society, but I also do a local TV show here in Georgina called Georgina Life, and that's on Rogers. But I've been doing this a long time. I think, Pete, I think I told you, I've been doing this since 1981. I feel like ancient or something.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So how did you get started? Because back then, I mean, this was not in the public eye. I mean, there was obviously a lot of controversy, especially I remember looking for a paranormal investigator, back 20 years ago when my house was, that's how I got into it. But I couldn't find one. There was none of that existed. So it was hard, right? Because you're stuck in that place. So how did you get into it?
Well, I kind of fell into it, much like I've fallen into everything in my life. But, it's one of those things when you're interested in the paranormal and you've had a lot of experiences as a child, right? You are curious. So you read about it and you only tell people that you know, because especially way back when, if you told people that you saw ghosts or you experienced weird things, they called you names or said you were weird or odd or, well,
that kind of thing.
Exactly. So I started out reading about it, talking to friends about it. We're talking in grade school. And then once I got to high school, people started to take me more seriously. And by the time I got to college, well, in Quebec, it's called CEGEP. It's sort of a preparatory for university. So you go to high school and then you go to CEGEP for 2 years and then you go to university. So by the time I got to CEGEP, I was really interested in it, and I was older, and then people would ask me to go to their houses to check them out, and that's sort of how I fell into it. Yeah. So it's very innocent.
How did people kind of take it? Because I remember when we've had this discussion before when on the previous interview, and when I started in the UK, I basically hid the fact that I didn't really classify myself as a paranormal investigator. I was more of a paranormal enthusiast back then. But like I couldn't even tell my friends or my family what I did because of the fact, you know, I was frightened in case I was scared that the fact that everyone would like look at me and start throwing pig's blood at me, that kind of thing, and you know, dip me in a lake or set me on fire, kind of thing. And how was it? How was it for you, kind of thing? Because you've been doing it a lot longer, and it was at a time you started at a time when there wasn't even. I don't think that there was anything on TV about it.
No, there really wasn't. I mean, aside from, you know, Rod Serling or Kolchak the Night Stalker, you know, way back when.
Or Haunted Canada or some Creepy Canada, I think it was called. I remember, I don't even know when that started, but that was maybe 90s or whatever. They had that Creepy Canada show. It was like a half hour. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really talk too much about it, only with friends. I didn't really even talk to my family about it, although they knew that I was really into all of this weird stuff, as, you know, they used to call it. But, but yeah, it's true, because you really didn't say much about it. But people would know that I was interested in it. And my good friends would, of course, know. And of course, if they heard of someone who was having a weird experience, they would connect us. And I think it was always word of mouth. I mean, you didn't take out an ad in the local paper. You didn't do anything like that. It was always word of mouth, much like even now, I think for the most part, you know, it's still word of mouth.
Yeah, it was back then. It was there was no such thing as social media or anything like that. I think the only brave thing I did back then was put a little poster up on top of the notice board in the local church, and that was it. And the rest of it was, you know, it was just kind of word of mouth for sure, kind of thing.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. But that's okay. I mean, you know what? We've come a long way since then. I had a conversation the other day about how when I first started, I just had a cassette tape recorder for those days. A tape recorder, a camera with a flash cube on it, a notepad and you know, a pencil, and my eyes, my ears, my intuition, whatever all that was. And to this day, when people say, well, what about equipment? What kind of equipment do you use? Yeah, we have some fancy equipment, but our best equipment is ourselves. And I think any paranormal investigator worth their salt will say exactly that, you know, you're the best indicator of what's going on in an environment, right?
Well, I think nowadays the main thing with the equipment is just proof for other people. Like, especially when you're looking at, you know, distributing whatever evidence that you pick up, you know, on social media, right? Because people are always like, well, we want proof. We want proof. We want proof. Well, here you go. This is the best we got. Like, this is all we can do, you know.
The problem is with equipment these days, though, it's not tangible evidence that you're presenting someone. You're going to, like, for example, you're going to present them a picture of a stick man dancing on top of a fridge. And you know, that's not, you know, obviously no evidence is, you know, is actual concrete proof that you know, that is an item of paranormal, because there's lots of flaws in it and stuff like that. But you've got to kind of break it down and just kind of keep it simple in relation to what you do. Otherwise, if you're introducing all these gadgets and these knocked off bits of plastic that make all these bells and noises and stuff like that, how can you present that to a client and say, you know what, that's paranormal, if you don't know how it works itself?
Right.
So yeah, no, I was in the same boat as you. I started off with a tape recorder. I actually had the microphone as well. I didn't have. I used to go and buy myself a disposable camera because I couldn't afford a proper camera, and it was like something like it was about £6 to get like the camera and to get the film developed for every investigation. And back then that was a lot of money for me. So it was I often wonder when I used to take it to the pharmacy, because pharmacy used to get the pictures developed and they'd be going through the pictures of, you know, they develop and stuff like that, and then there's like 20 pictures of like a wardrobe. And
exactly.
I go in there and take the pictures of it, and as I'm walking out, I'm going through them and all that, and I'm like, and the guy must think.
Yep. What?
Proper lunatic right there. But anyway.
Well, at least we provided some entertainment for the people in the photo booth.
Yeah, they had no clue back then, and bless him. So you have you mentioned a TV show as well, and I understand as well. You're also on the you're also on Paranormal Survivor as well. Can you tell us a little bit about those, please?
Oh, yeah. Paranormal Survivor is an interesting show. And again, people say, well, how did you get onto that show? And I fell into that because it happened that I got a phone call it was an email, a hit from our website, from the producer of Paranormal Survivor. And I think he was going over to a lot of the Canadian paranormal sites and sort of testing the waters and seeing who was out there and who was doing what. So I responded to the email. He asked for my contact information. And then I got a phone call from him, and he wanted some cases to reach out to people for this show. And so for seasons 1 and 2, I sent over some cases. And then in season 3, I was asked by, at that point, another producer, whether I wanted to be one of their paranormal experts. Don't you love that word?
Yeah, I do, yeah. It kind of makes people's nose fall out of place when you're a paranormal expert. You can't be an expert. You can't.
There's no such thing. No such thing.
Yeah, I know. There's no such thing. You're not an expert. No, go and sit in the corner. Anyway.
So when you were doing the show, did you? Okay, so I don't know how much I'm allowed to ask about the show. I've been on TV as well, doing an investigation, and many talk shows, not talk shows, but like blog, these type of things, right? Like interviews and stuff like that. And there's times where you hear stories of others, which is I'm kind of assuming that you're doing with Paranormal Survivor, and you're sitting there and you're like, I just want to say something, but I'm not going to because I know that this is kind of made up, but what do I do?
Well, actually, I will say right here, right now, that all of the cases on Paranormal Survivor are actual cases. They are absolutely 100% real. And all of us experts are given the cases prior to going and doing our filming. So we know a little bit about them. We know a little bit about what happened. And we know enough about the kind of cases that they are in order to comment with some kind of, expertise.
Authority type of knowledge. Authority and knowledge.
So how does that work? How does that work with the show? Like with your commentary and stuff like that? Do they just stick a camera in your face and as they're going through it, and you're like talking to yourself and they're filming you? Is that how it works?
Well,
or do they ask you specific questions?
Yeah, they ask us specific questions based on the case, and then we answer those. And then, of course, they do their reenactments. And it has to look good on TV. It has to. So sometimes they might be a little overdone, but that's okay because people do love to see that. And even I myself think it's quite interesting when sometimes they're over the top. But you and I both know that when a person experiences something that they can't explain, often that's the way they perceive it too. I mean, it's in their mind, it's so over the top. It's so terrifying. It's so crazy. But yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah. It's that line in the sand where you've got actual, factual story coming from, a witness, and then you've got that element of entertainment as well. So there's that overlap where they portray it, and obviously they dramatize it a little bit more to make it, as something to watch on TV kind of thing. So. Exactly.
But it's such a great thing. It's a great thing. They are very great at putting everything together. And the people who do the show are so professional and so great that, I have no complaints. They're really great. And I hope that we do another season because I think that we do good things by doing this show. We bring to light some of the issues that people are facing, maybe some of the questions that they're too afraid to ask, and we answer them. So I don't know. That's why we do what we do in this field anyway, is to help people. If you're doing it for other reasons, monetary reasons, whatever, you're in it for the wrong reasons, right? So if you can be there to help people, answer their questions, make them feel a little bit more at ease, I think, it's a good thing. So I'm hoping they bring it back because I always felt as if I was doing something good. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's that line of, being, an actual documentary as opposed to the other shows that are coming out in relation, just the kind of theaterized Hollywood thing where someone's walking around in complete darkness saying, what was that, who was that, and that kind of thing, where it kind of definitely drags out the truth on what exactly is going on, for sure.
Agreed.
We have we have a comment from Honeybees C, and she says, I'm going to need to watch that show. Where can they watch the show? Is it who produced it, or which network is it on, or is it if I wanted to go and watch episodes of it, where would be the best place to go right now? So.
Well, they often do reruns of it, and sometimes they do those marathons every once in a while. Normally on the T&E network, Travel and Escape.
Okay.
So that's where you would find it. You can find some episodes on YouTube, and I think at one point they did have them on Netflix at some point. I don't know if they're still there.
I'm not sure. I see some shows on Netflix, but then. It
was on Netflix for about 2 to 3 years, and then they took it off. But I was actually looking at it last night, and there's pretty much all of the shows are on YouTube, or if you Google it as well, there's another website where you can do a free streaming as well on it as well. So nice. You can definitely get it for sure.
Good.
Okay.
Good. There were some great cases that they had us comment on that even to this day, I remember them because they were so striking. So it's a good show, if I do say so myself.
Do you get to meet the actual guests or the people that are on the show? Because they usually I haven't seen this one, but usually they'll have the actor that's portraying the real person, but they also have the real person that, the client, I guess. Is that how it works with Paranormal Survivor as well, or?
No, we actually don't meet them. We know everything about the cases, mind you, but no, we don't. Right. We don't get to meet the people. But that's another thing that was so weird, is that I think it was in season 2, they used one of the cases that I had, and it was about a haunted mirror in a place called Queensville, Ontario, and they had somebody on the show playing me.
What?
Yeah.
So was it a famous Hollywood actress? Was it
No. I can't say that it was Demi Moore or anybody like that, but no, she didn't even really look like me at all. But it was so funny, it was so funny.
Was it Bruce Willis dressed up as a woman?
No.
Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about a little bit about your investigations, that kind of thing. But obviously, where you are, you're probably in one of the most historical areas in Canada. Obviously in comparison to BC, because we just don't have any history here whatsoever. So tell us about some of the cases you've been on over the years.
Well, gosh, there's been so many. I calculated it's been 40 years since I started, but up here in Georgina, we have a lot of history. So we have, oh my gosh, now I'm trying to think. There's so many. Pete, Kathy, I don't know.
What's your most memorable case? What's your most memorable case? The one that kind of sticks out the most for both personal experiences and evidence.
I'm gonna say, there's a few, but one in particular was a home in a place called Mount Albert, Ontario, which is not too far from where we are. That's a really, really interesting, beautiful town, a lot of old homes. But I was working a case, and this was not with the Georgina Paranormal Society, though. This is with another. Well, actually, no. I was going to say it was with the Toronto Ghosts and Hauntings Research Society, because I was with them for a few years as well. But I had left them at this point and was working pretty much on my own with a few people who, even to this day, don't even want to admit that they were working cases with me. There you go, right? We were talking about people not wanting to talk about that they're in this. Right. It happens to this day. But I was doing a case in Mount Albert, and we had set up all our cameras. And we were there all night. This lady had been seeing the ghost of a woman who was an elderly woman. And she was terrified, absolutely terrified, didn't know what to do about it, swore up and down that she saw this old lady walking down the stairs. So the stairs were a hot spot. We set up cameras. We were there all night. There was a room upstairs as well that was quite active. So we had some cameras in that room. And there were 3 of us. One was upstairs in the room. 2 of us were downstairs. Anyway, all night we were there. Nothing, absolutely nothing happened. And yet, when we packed up 5 o'clock in the morning, guess what happened?
That's when it appears.
Well, it was so cold. The room, well, we were at the bottom of the stairs, and that whole area was so cold, you could see your breath, which was incredible. And then all of a sudden, I look, and coming down the stairs is this elderly lady who was solid, just like you and me. And the only weird thing was she had no feet. And she walked right down the stairs, or glided right down the stairs, and went right through the front door. And I looked at the girl that I was with, and she looked at me, and like any good paranormal investigator, I said, okay, you write down what you saw. I'll write down what I saw, and we'll compare notes. And sure enough, we did. And we looked at each other and said, why does this happen when the cameras are off and you have no equipment at all? Because she wanted evidence again. Right. So we had no evidence except for what we saw. And that's important in itself.
Hang on, take a step back. How could you remain so calm? Did you just turn around and say?
Right. I was thinking the same thing. You see this
what was the investigator's name? What was her name? What was the name of the lady that was with you?
Oh, Barbara.
Barbara, would you mind writing down what you just seen, please? Yes, I wouldn't mind doing that.
Oh my
God. What did you say?
Can you just hand me the notepad while I'm under the couch? Thanks. I appreciate it. Just toss me the pen.
Yes, I will write it down, Lynda.
Right? It was hilarious.
Because for each other. Oh, yes, bingo.
Please. Oh, my God. My heart was in my throat, and I think I was in shock. And I think both of us were in shock. And we just kind of stared at this thing as it walked down the stairs. Yeah, I didn't scream, I didn't run out the door, but it was really shocking. And I think because it was the first time that I'd ever seen anything so clearly, and it was absolutely, I mean, it was just like you and me. It was solid, and I'd never seen that before. So that was one of the most incredible cases that I think I've ever worked.
Yeah. And it's not even just as like a medium where you might see something or something. Like this is actually like a solid figure. So, I mean, I've personally never seen anything like that. I mean, I've seen things as, as a medium where, that no one else is seeing it, but it looks real to me. But this is a whole other, this is a whole nother genre.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was fun. But there was another funny one, if you want to hear an interesting thing.
I was going to go to the bloopers in a minute as well. Yeah, but if you want to.
Well, and we were talking, I think, off camera before about how it would be so hilarious to put together a blooper reel or maybe a comedy sketch on some of the stuff that happens when you're out there. I mean, it's just nuts. But when I had started the Georgina Paranormal Society just before, actually, maybe a month or two. Oh my God, this was hilarious. I decided that I was going to follow up on a lead in town here. Now, I live in Keswick, Ontario, which is right on Lake Simcoe. And there's a lot of interesting things that happen here. We are close to Georgina Island, so that's Chippewa First Nation.
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
No, my dog just knocked open my door.
Oh my gosh. I thought maybe somebody was walking in on you that was, seen to you.
we conjured the demon as we were having this interview. That's what it was.
That's what it was. But no, this was an interesting thing because this lady had reached out and said she was having some interesting problems. So I knew that I would have to kind of poke her a little because she wasn't really telling me what kind of interesting problems that she was having. But then when I poked her a little, she said, well, my husband and I moved into this home and we're kind of elderly. And I said, okay. And she said, well, we're not rabbits or anything. Like, we've been married a little while, but he seems a little, frisky these days ever since we moved into this house. And prior to moving into this house, he was never frisky, and I don't know what's going on, but there's something going on in this home, and it's usually upstairs, and it's really frisky he is. And I thought, well, that's weird. And she said, we thought it might be paranormal because, we've never felt this in any other home, and we go into this house, and it's kind of interesting, but maybe you can come in and check it out. And I thought, what an interesting thing that she would think this was paranormal and not something else.
Right.
It's called the blue pill.
Right. So I thought, well, I'm going to check it out. So she gives me the address and we make an arrangement. I'm going to go over at 1:00 just to interview them and walk around the house and see what's going on. So I show up and I park the car and I ring the doorbell. Now, don't forget, they just moved in really not that long ago. So I ring the doorbell, and you know how normally you ring the doorbell and you can hear the doorbell ringing? I didn't hear that. But I thought, well, maybe it's on a remote. I don't know. What do I know? So I ring it again and I ring it again, and I'm standing out there for a good 10 minutes thinking, what's going on? So I start knocking on the door. Nothing. The neighbor pulls into the driveway and gets out of the car and says to me, oh, excuse me, but they won't hear you because the doorbell's broken. And I said, oh, okay, no, thank you very much. She said, no, actually, it's not really broken. And I said, really, what are you talking about? Well, the man who used to live there disconnected the doorbell. And I said, okay. And I'm thinking, wow, this is an interesting thing because, and then she tells me the whole story. Well, he was kind of a playboy and he used to have a lot of women into the home. And, he actually shared with me that he had this love den upstairs and she went on and on about this man. And, he actually passed away. And he passed away in the house and he passed away in his love den. So we really, we wondered about what was going on. She told me everything. Anyway, fast forward, I finally get in to see this lady. Sure enough, I go upstairs, and when you're a paranormal investigator for a long time, when there's something going on. There's an atmosphere that's a little different. You can tell that there's something going on in the house. Well, upstairs, this place was insane. I mean, that bathroom had this gorgeous bathtub. It was all painted red in there. It was like unbelievable. And you could feel the electricity in the air in this place. And they had no idea. I asked them, did you ever speak to the neighbor? Nope.
Right.
Nope. She never talked to us. She always, said, "Oh, hi," and then went in her car and left. I never spoke to the neighbor. So I told her why she's feeling these things. And yes, that obviously something of him was left in the home, and possibly because he'd been doing this for a long time and having these women in the home, the atmosphere was a little different. And yes, this is why this was happening. That was the most hilarious thing. I mean, I solved it even before I walked through the front door.
I love it. So there's his spirit running around, just still kicking on like a rabbit, eh?
You know something? You could feel his energy in that place. It was absolutely everywhere. And they hadn't really done much, painting or anything like that, because they hadn't been there long. But his energy was absolutely in there. So after, I went in and she wanted a saging done. She wanted a cleansing done. It was really hilarious because the atmosphere completely changed. And about a year later, when I contacted her, because that's important too, when you do this, you have to keep in contact with, your clients. She said, "Oh, he's as boring as usual."
She's probably regretting the cleansing at that point.
Probably. She seemed quite happy, though. She did. It was really funny. Really funny.
That's hilarious.
I got a funny story. About 22 years ago, I'd fortunate enough to investigate Leeds Castle in Kent. And at that time, it was a summer's evening, and they had like a summer fete there where everyone dressed up in period clothing and stuff like that, and that was over one side of the site, and we basically got there when everyone was packing up and stuff like that. So we were investigating the castle, different locations and stuff like that. And there was one time we went outside, and it was back at the time where I used to smoke. So we were outside having a cigarette. There was 3 of us outside smoking, and it was like a typical. The atmosphere was like a typical scene out of a horror movie, where it was like the fog was starting to build up and stuff like that. And we're outside smoking, and it looked like a scene out of a horror movie, or like so something was going to happen, like a werewolf was going to jump out. So we're standing there, and all of a sudden, we could see like this image coming towards us up the pathway, and there was this guy walking up, and he was dressed up in 18th century period clothing, and he was just walking along, and he had one of these lamps, it was like a big stick at the end with like it had like a little vase inside with like a candle inside, like a glass vase. So he's walking along like that, and he walks straight past us, and he walks into what was the toilet, like the washroom area. So, and we're looking at each other, and we didn't click about what went on earlier on or anything like that, and we just looked at each other, all white, brilliant white faces. So one of the guys with us, he got up and he goes, right. So he's gone running to the toilet. He's gone running to the toilet like that, and he's come out and he's laughing. He goes, "There's a guy now having a piss."
Oh my God.
It was just so picturesque at that time, because my friend Doug, he's over in the Cape Breton, and he had a similar story to tell us about, similar thing that time. But it was just picturesque. There was just the 3 of us, and we totally forgot about what went on earlier with the guys in the period clothing and stuff like that. And just to see the way, because it was like fog, that that image of England with the fog and stuff like that. And then you could just see this guy walking up, and he didn't even acknowledge us. That's the thing. He walked straight past us and went straight into the washrooms. And my friend looked at me, and he looked at me, and he didn't even say a word. And he's gone running in there like that. He's having a piss.
Oh my God. Some of the things that happen, though, are quite hilarious.
It's certainly comical at times, that's for sure. It definitely the joy definitely outweighs the negative side of the field at times as well. Just is like most of the time, it's just being with the right people rather than just the thrill, the chase kind of thing more than anything else.
We had this case once. It was out on an acreage, and the lady had called us because her husband had actually committed suicide in the garage. And, she was, they were not only experiencing some things within the house after he had done that, but there had been some things that had gone on even before he had. And so we went down there and we wanted to check it out. And, it was interesting because as soon as we walked in, we have a couple of investigators that were very sensitive to EMF, right? Like get a headache right away. And so, within 10 or 15 minutes, they were just like, okay, I gotta go take a Tylenol on this because this is really getting bad. And of course, then we pull out the EMF meters. Yes, they were really high, the whole bit. So we were investigating this house and, ladies being pretty casual and stuff about it. And all of a sudden she says, yeah, I just don't want it to happen again. When I get married, I don't want another one, to kill himself because the police are really starting to look at me funny. Turns out she didn't tell us about the first husband that also apparently hung himself. So there's been two. And we were like, oh, okay. Well, I don't know if we should stay here or not. Like, what's going on?
Oh my gosh.
We're all just sitting there like, well, you kind of left out that detail, didn't you? Oh, okay. Now maybe you shouldn't get married and stay in this house. Like maybe you just should not be around the marriage.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
Yeah,
That's
and she's like, yeah, like the police are already, they kind of suspect stuff going on, and we're like, yeah, no, like I don't know why they would do that.
There was we're kind of going off the interview at the moment, but there was the very first investigation I did when I took over from the Vancouver Paranormal Society. It was a residential case. It was a small house in Maple Ridge, just in the Lower Mainland, and it was the third investigation. We went back, and there was apparently there was activity all over the house, and they had a small basement suite. So there was me and this guy called Daniel down there, and we were down there, and we were just sitting there. We were sitting there for probably about 10-15 minutes, and all of a sudden I said, well, I'm going to say a few things just to see whether anything can stir up or anything like that. So I can't remember exactly what I said. I said, if there's anyone there, can you please give us a sign or an indication you're there? Something, the same generic thing, just to get a kind of response. Right. And then all of a sudden we both heard a go out like that. And I froze and I looked at Daniel, and Daniel looked at me and he was like that. And I'm like, hello? And it goes out like that. And I'm like, by then, I'm starting to get cold. Like the hairs on my arm was like really standing out because it was really loud. It was like a really vocal, like go out like that. So we're he's looking at me, and I said, look, I said I'm going to start looking around downstairs because there was a couple of bedrooms along there. So as I got up, the dog was under the table, and it got up from under the table and ran away, and he dropped a toy on the floor, and it was one of those squeaky toys. And as the squeaky toy hit the floor, it went back out.
Oh no. Oh,
yeah, it was hilarious, but it was just like, it was so deep and vocal. It was like, out. So, anyway.
Wow, I love that.
So, have you been on any cases where you walk away and this was a negative energy, a negative, I whatever you prefer to refer them to? Some people like using the terminology demons, some just use negative energy, some whatever it is. But have you experienced this? Probably have. You've been doing it a while. Yeah.
Yeah, a few. I mean, it's interesting because most people, when they talk to paranormal investigators, they want them to talk about the negative. They want them to talk about all the demonic ones. Demonic is the term that gets thrown around like confetti.
Yeah.
But, you know, in 40 years, I can say maybe 3 or 4 that I've come into contact with were darker. I don't know if they've been demonic, but certainly darker. I was on a case back home in Montreal that was a little strange because this was, you know, in the early 80s when people didn't talk about stuff like this, but there was a little boy who was being scratched. And this is when I was at McGill University. So when I was at McGill, I had some friends that knew that I was doing this, and they contacted me because the mom was a friend and was really upset. And this little boy was being scratched. So they said, you know, can you just come and check this out? Now, I'd never heard of this at the time.
Right.
Nobody was writing about it. Nobody was talking about it. So I said, yeah, sure. So I went, and it was a very old home in Westmount. Westmount in Montreal is a really, you know, it's a beautiful area. There are a lot of old homes in Westmount. This was a gorgeous old home. They'd lived there for about 10 years. The boy was about 6 at the time. And this was the first case that I'd ever done. And I was very young, very new, where when I walked through the front door, I felt as if I was going to be attacked. I mean, I just really felt just on edge. And I was not by myself. I was there with people. But it was a horrible feeling in that house. And it was also the first time that I'd ever come into contact with someone bringing something into the home in terms of being antique that had an attachment. And that's where this thing, whatever it was, had come from. And I asked a lot of questions. I wrote down a lot of things. And we ascertained that something had been brought into the home that, you know, kind of made all of this happen, that it sprung from this particular object.
Right.
Object was a box. It was like a cigar box that they had picked up at an estate sale that the little boy felt particularly drawn to. And he wanted to put his little dinosaur collections and things inside this cigar box, which is quite large. But that box was horrible. Absolutely horrible. But this kid had scratches like all over his arms. He was being attacked in bed at night. And he was, I mean, I hate to say getting possessed, but whatever it was in that home, and I don't think it was a demon, but it certainly was a more malevolent entity. Was trying to take him over. I mean, he was a great little kid, but he would have these bouts of anger and bouts of, you know, depression and lashing out. And this was a cute little kid, but man, whatever was in there was unbelievable. But we managed to you know, track down what was causing it, got rid of the box, which, you know, was a great thing. And after that box left, it was amazing the changes that happened. There was nothing else in that house. It was gone. They were very religious, though. They were very Catholic, and they wanted the house to be blessed. And so the priest came, they blessed the house, but this was after the box was taken out. And that kid was 100% fine, but they couldn't figure out anything until I came into the situation, because I guess I asked the right questions. But that was the first time I'd ever seen scratches. And I can remember that to this day. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
So just as kind of a sidebar question in relation to haunted objects, how many objects have you come across over the years that are legitimately active? Like what you can, like, because there's been over the last few years, because obviously with the TV shows that come on and stuff like that, all of a sudden everything's haunted now and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, you can never say never. I'm not, you know, I don't disbelieve, and I totally believe in the concept about energy transfer and stuff like that. And I believe it can happen, but I also believe at the same time as well, it's kind of been exaggerated because of what media's done. It's a bit like Ouija boards as well, things like that. And it's always been around, like, you know, like haunted objects have been around, like it's been recorded in the Doomsday Book in the UK as well. But how often have you ever come across it?
I'm going to say just a handful of times, really. I mean, that haunted mirror that I cleansed as well, that was kind of interesting. And that was in Queensville. That was a Paranormal Survivor episode. That would be maybe the fifth time in 40 years that I've come across a haunted object. And I think you're right. I think the more, mainstream paranormal is, the more people are going to attach maybe some falsehood to what's going on in their environment, because they're influenced by what they see and they're influenced by what they hear. Yeah, absolutely. And, honestly, you're both paranormal investigators. You know that even now there are so many little paranormal groups that are popping up. And I said this the other day. I was doing an interview with someone and I said, they're popping up like pimples on an adolescent. It's incredible how many little groups are out there. Are they all in it for the right reasons? Why are they in it? What are they? And the only thing that I can imagine is, they love watching the shows. They want to emulate what other people are doing. They want to see stuff. I mean, how many times do people say, oh, I want to see a ghost? I mean, we had before, all this stuff is happening in the world. We, as a group, we had bi-monthly paranormal meetings, and they're public, which is
what we used to do too. We used to have weekly paranormal meetings that we opened up to the public for those that had an interest in it. We ran those for about, 6-7 years, I guess. And it was great because people that had an interest were able to come and share their stories and hear lectures and presentations. And yeah, it was cool.
That's what we do.
Neat to hear that. Yeah.
That's what we do. But I'll say a lot of people, most people, 98% that show up at our meetings do so. I mean, legitimately, they're interested. They want to find out more about it. They've had experiences. And, there's that common denominator of experience that they really want to hear. They want to know they're not alone. But you've got that, 2% that come because they want to see a ghost and they want to go on an investigation, and it's like this rush, this adrenaline rush. And I think a lot of people that, are in groups these days, that's what they want.
Yeah, it's
absolutely. Yeah.
It's dangerous in the respect where you've got these groups mimicking TV, in which, we're all I hate using that word, but because everyone says it, we're all students in the field and we're all learning and stuff like that. But you're right what you're saying, that there are people that are not in it for the same reasons that perhaps we are in the respect. And when you're dealing with things like residential cases where, the client's particularly sensitive to what's going on, it's basically like waving a gun in someone's face, because without going into details, I've actually firsthand witnessed what could happen to a client by, mistreating them and, just being a thrill seeker without actually trying to help them. And she ended up killing herself for it because they didn't, she had there were some underlying, mental issues and stuff like that, but they didn't really help the situation in what they did and how they stepped forward in regard to the investigation. They weren't very courteous or anything like that. They kept going back. They were just treating the place like an experiment. There was no kind of resolve to what they were finding. There was stuff that was going on in the house, but there was no kind of conclusion to it or anything like that. They just wanted to go in and get more evidence. They didn't do anything with it. They just, looked at it, and got all excited and just walked away with it, kind of thing. But,
let me tell you, it's interesting because when I formed the Georgina Paranormal Society in 2012, we're still around, and it's 2021, but we've been through different people in the group too, because you have to jive as a team. You have to have the same, the same modus operandi. You have to really understand what you're doing, and you have to work together. There has to be a similar vibe and jive between all of you. And I mean, right now I can safely say we have a great team. I mean, we've got, my assistant director, Chris, she's also clairvoyant, which really helps. She's very sensitive. She's been my assistant director since day one. And I'm thrilled that she's there. We've got Deb Panchuk, who's a great investigator. We've got Sherry Gray, who's also really great. And we've got Robin Rayome, who's amazing. And we all really jive together. But that's the key. I mean, you have to understand too that when you're going into residential, which is mostly what we do a lot of residential cases, you have to understand that these people are scared. They don't know what to expect. And maybe they don't want you to bring 25 cases of equipment that you kind of throw up on their kitchen counter and you click open and you take out cameras and you've got 25,000 feet of coaxial cable and you're wandering all around. Maybe they don't want that. Maybe they just want to talk to you. Maybe they just want a minimum of equipment. And you also have to understand that when you're going into that kind of environment, and there is something there, whatever is there, 9 times out of 10, it knows you're there. And that activity is going to ramp up once you've been there and you've been poking around and asking questions. And you've got to be knowledgeable enough to say to these people, listen, this may happen. So I need you to be aware that when we leave, things might ramp up. But we're here for you. If something happens, call us. It doesn't matter what time of the day. If you're afraid, if you have questions, we're here for you. And that's rare. If you can get a group of investigators that are, cohesive, that can go into an environment and be able to explain to the client, this is what may happen, and also be sensitive enough to address the client and say, what are you comfortable with? Do you want us to come in with, all kinds of equipment? What kind of evidence are you looking for? Because you don't want to scare the crap out of them. I mean, how many times have you gone in? I mean, we went into one place. We brought our digital recorder and our spirit box, and we got some, compelling evidence. I mean, when someone says to the question, where are you? And clear as a bell, it comes through as lost. If you've got the client there, they might say, oh my God, I'm terrified, or I'm sad, or, you got to be able to talk to them, to explain to them what's going on. Right. I mean, it's just,
Exactly. We've got a couple of questions. Oh, sorry, Peter. I was just going to say, we have a couple of questions coming in that I'd like to ask, from our chat, but it was interesting with what you said, especially with the clients. And one of the things that we actually had created, or like I sort of put together with our team, is we were getting a lot of people that were, especially the ones that they just watched Ghost Hunters or some other show, and they were like, oh, I've got all of this going on. And, and then it creates that sheep effect within the house. So now every noise, every bump, every jump is creating havoc, right? And what I did is I asked them, I said, I want you each to get a notebook, a coiled notebook, for every person in the house. And each incident needs to be on a separate page. I don't want any lists, because when you have a list, your eyes automatically go to the top of the list, and then you read down, and then you get hyperactive and you get scared of the past experience. So I took a lot of series.
We're losing you, Kathy.
Put on one, you flip that page, reason for you. Go.
It looks like she's possessed.
Go put it somewhere. What are you laughing at? Oh,
you're crazy. We lost you. You're like.
Oh.
I love the internet.
Hilarious.
I know, it was either demonic possession or you were having a stroke. One of the two.
Oh, Is it
No,
is it
no,
good now?
No, you've gone all fuzzy as well.
Hear me now though?
You kind of,
Hang on.
that's what you look like.
Oh, God. Poor Kathy.
Okay,
I
am I
know.
back? Is it
Oh, yeah.
working now?
You're back.
That's better.
Yay!
Yeah.
It was probably so like some crazy.
Okay.
Okay.
But I don't know.
Should we
I don't know how
open
much
up?
you've heard of that, but sorry, Peter. I was just trying.
We
wanna
kind
get
of got bits and pieces of it, but I think we got sidetracked with your facial expressions.
You gotta laugh.
Okay.
There's some
Oh,
questions.
here we go.
And is it? Are you okay?
Kathy, you're into
Can you guys?
Yeah, your internet's possessed.
What? Okay, hang on.
Aw, poor Kathy.
Better?
Joys of my feed, eh?
Yeah. Oh, welcome to the internet.
I know.
Okay.
Okay, so
Hang on.
I'll,
Can you guys? Can you see me now, or is it still off?
that's
Okay,
a little
just-
bit better.
Let's see.
Okay. All right, let's go to some questions. So Wes Coleman has piped up, and could you ask Lynda if there is a certain historical paranormal investigator she has always looked up to, and if she aspires to be more than like that person? Sorry, it's come up really small on my screen, and my computer's cramped out as well.
I can read it.
Okay, good.
Yeah. If there's a certain historical paranormal investigator she always looked up to, and if she aspired to be more like that person. Wes, great question. And first of all, Wes Coleman, you know that I think that you are the most wonderful person. Wes is a wonderful guy. Honestly, Wes is with COPS, the Correctional Officers Paranormal Society. And I just love you. Wes, you know what? Yes, I've always really loved Hans Holzer. Honestly, as a kid, loved Hans Holzer. Read everything, every story. And also, I really, I'm going to say, gosh, I don't know. I think I'm going to stick with Hans Holzer. I always wanted to be a Hans Holzer, and I wanted to have the little tape recorder with the microphone and interviewed people. And I wanted to have Sybil Leek come with me on my investigations. So I'm going to say I really liked Hans Holzer and read everything I could. And even as a kid, there was a book that I had by Sheila Hervey called Some Canadian Ghosts. And I was really influenced by that book. And I know that Wes was influenced by that book too. We had that in common. But yeah, you know what? I read everything that I possibly could. So
there you go. There's another comment from Wes. There you go. You love each other.
Great. He's pretty amazing. We actually went on an investigation to Picton, and Wes takes care of the paranormal investigation portion of the oh gosh, what's it called now? Wes, help me out. It's you know what? It's terrible when you go blank, right? We went to Picton and we went to Prince Edward Heights on an investigation with two other groups. And Wes takes care of all the arrangements. So we had met these two other groups of investigators up there, and Wes kind of showed us around. He's so knowledgeable and so great. But these other groups of women that we went with, we were all females. So much fun. We went with Crystal Pie and Black Moon Paranormal, which is out of Aurelia, Ontario, and also Katie Turner that I do Paranormal Survivor with, who went with her group of investigators, and they're the Canadian Supernatural Research Society. And Wes was really great. He took us around, and that place was insane. We got some interesting activity. Our equipment failed a lot on that investigation, and that happens a lot, as you know. So, yeah, equipment is never great, is it?
Am I back normal now? I'm so sorry.
You're normal. Kathy,
Okay.
you're back. You're normal.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
What happened?
So my Netflix was on. It was funny because I went downstairs to turn off my iPad because I had my iPad on, so that's connected to the internet. My phone was connected to so we had all of this. My son's computer was connected to, so I walked down the stairs to go to the iPad. First thing I see is a big Annabelle underneath the couch. So I was like, yeah, no, on the TV on the TV screen, I was like, yeah, this is appropriate. Okay, cool.
Annabelle.
Next question, Lynda. Have you ever experienced a teammate fake evidence? And if so, how were you able to determine this and deal with it? See, I could read that one. That one popped up. Okay.
Wow. Thankfully, I've never had a teammate fake evidence. Ever, really. I'm really lucky that way. We've had teammates that were, that maybe didn't jive with the group and things like that. But faking evidence has never, thankfully, been something that happened. So, but if I did ever have that, I think that I would just likely go up to that person and just confront them and say, what are you doing? I mean, that's the best way to do it. Just confront them and say, what are you doing? This is not what we do. And don't do it again. Thankfully, I've never had to do it.
Unfortunately, over the years with when I was a part of Vancouver Paranormal Society, it was pretty much a norm with a lot of the investigators that I had. And we went through some bad times in that respect, but that's why I walked away from that kind of environment, and I just created a group just with my friends, like people I trust and the people I know, I've got history with as well, and it's I've created my own environment with the field and things that I want to do as well, not just ghost hunting and stuff like that. And and it's more exciting now than what it was before, because it was just a formality more than anything else before.
No, that's true. You're so lucky that you did that. And honestly, people, I don't know why people do. Well, no, that's not true. I know why people would fake evidence, because let's face it, and I know that if you're going and investigating, sometimes it's hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of absolutely nothing. Right. So I guess when you really want something to happen, some people might fake it. That's just not right.
It's bad when it happens, and it's always awkward when you catch people out as well, because they I don't know, they think you're stupid at the same time when you could hear their voice.
Yeah.
Voice over an EVP and stuff like that. But it kind of, for me, I was at that point where I don't know if you know, I was a part of TAPS, and I was a director of TAPS. And there was a lot of people became my friend on Facebook and stuff like that. And it was just fake. It was all people that just wanted to be your friend because, you associate yourself with the TAPS family, and you're a director and stuff like that. And when I quit TAPS and I took my team away from the TAPS family, all of those people disappeared.
Really?
Which is good. It didn't bother me at all. I shortened. I got rid of my clutter and I moved forward, and it's the best thing I've ever done. I think. Anyway. But there's a couple of shout outs to you as well. There's that was at the beginning of the show. Sorry, Crystal. And where's there you go.
You're a sweetheart.
Okay, I think that's it for this week. Thank you very much for joining us, Lynda. And we will hopefully you'll be joining us on our ventures on this, so you'll be a part of our permanent fixture once Kathy sorts out her internet.
Oh my gosh!
I need to get a shot.
It's really bad, Kathy. Honestly, it's just your face looks like it's just matrixed, and it looks like.
Poor Kathy. I had so much fun. I really did. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. No, she's gone again. That's it. we have better Wi-Fi in BC. Okay, thanks guys for tuning in, and please subscribe to our I Want to Believe channel. And no, she's trying still. She's trying. Okay, well, thanks guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week at 7 o'clock.
Thank you.